Hi everyone, delonewolf here. Welcome back to some more EVE Online. Welcome also to Jita, because in today's video I am going to talk a little bit about contracts in EVE Online. This is actually a request from one of the viewers. It's a bit of an older request. I don't always have time to go straight into things that people request when it comes to EVE Online, but this one I think is pretty interesting. And to start out with, I'm going to show you guys what I use contracts for. It is of course this business right here, the blueprint copies. So first of all, move these to your item hanger if you want to create contracts, because that only works from there, not from your ship's cargo bay. But this is something that I do once a week. It takes about 7 days for me to create these blueprints. So one blueprint copy for Orca, it's only a one run. It is a pretty tricky one to make, but that also makes it pretty valuable, of course. And then I also make blueprint copies from the M structures that I can. It's a very good business. It is a decently expensive business to get into, because you do need to buy the blueprint originals, which for these items is very expensive. But if you stick with it for the long term, you do get a nice profit out of it eventually, and it all becomes profit once the cost of your blueprint is covered, of course. And now you can't just right click and sell those or press view market details, and what you'll actually find is only the details for the blueprint originals. The only way to sell these blueprint copies is through the contract system. So the first thing that I do is always press find in contracts, take a look at the station. And then in Jita, these are going for 15.4 million and then 24 to 25 million. That is for a one copy run, for the Orca blueprints. So as you can tell, these are very expensive and quite valuable. Now, back in the day, I would always try to undercut even the cheapest one, but these days I'm a little bit more careful, and I basically try to match one that I think is reasonable. And here, 24 million, that would be a very nice price. That would be practically 100 million ISK for these contracts, and so that is the price that I'm going to aim at. Usually also these BPCs for Orcas do sell very quickly, so all you do is right click, create contract, press in the price that you want, press finish, and yes, there we go, first one set up. Then I'll do the next one, next 24, that's 4 of them, so that ought to be 24 million exactly. If you have more than one, then of course press copy paste. It's gonna save you a little bit of time, but this is something once a week I do this. Once a week I can come up with these blueprint copies, and I try to sell these, of course. Now I have more contract slots, and I used to always put in extra contracts as well for like BPC parts. Still have a massive library of that down here, but these days I don't bother with that too much anymore. It is a pretty slow market for those, and it's not always easy to actually sell them. And these BPCs that I'm currently making here, they sell every single week, so I feel like that's a bit of a better use of my time for me personally. And here now we have the Astros blueprint going for 5 million in Jita, which is not that bad. And so these days what I do is I match that cheapest one. So that ought to be 5 million. There we go. Finish. Create. And next one. There we go. That's that. And yeah, about 100 million from this. It's pretty passive income, so I do like to keep up with it. These we've got actually an auction here for starting at 2.2 million. Then we get one for 5 million, but most going for 699. So I'm actually going to maybe try to undercut those guys a little bit. Let's say 6.9 for the Athenor blueprints, like that. Yes, please. Create contracts. These are up as well, and then we still have 3 right arrow blueprints. We actually make 3 of those in 7 days, so that is not bad. And these ought to be the cheapest ones because it is the cheapest structure. But no, look at that, still 5.5 to 6 million for these. So still going quite nicely, and you're getting a nice profit out of these. Even for someone like me who actually produces these BPCs from an NPC station just to keep those expensive blueprint originals absolutely safe. It's maybe a bit paranoid, but that's the way I roll. And on this one, I am going to go for 5.5 million because I do have 3 of them. I think it's gonna be... Damn, might have made a mistake, so we're not gonna take a risk. risk, but 5.5 million. It's 3 of them, so I think that it's better to compete with the lowest price here, so that I give myself a better chance of actually selling these items. And there we go. So that is something that I do every single week. It's pretty passive, right? All I have to do is set up the research jobs. I can show those to you guys as well. For instance, here are the Orcas blueprints going. These are actually in the research Raitaru. And then if we go on by me, here is the Raitaru going, the Athanor and the Astrahus. And all of them have around 4 days left to go. So that's once a week you do that. Then when they are done, you do a trip in Jita, use something like this Dramiel, and you're super fast, and that's it. You get 100 million potentially made in the game. Not bad at all. Now, to be honest, you can do a lot more with contracts, and so I'm gonna talk a little bit more about all of that, but before I do that, I definitely want to ask you guys as well, because this video is meant a little bit more for newer players, just to give them a bit of an idea what contracts is all about and what they can potentially do. And I'm not a big specialist. This is what I do, what you just saw. I make BPCs and I sell them through the contracts, but I don't use it for, let's see what other items we have. Let's see if we can. Yeah, it's been such a long time since I've actually, since I went into contracts myself. You've got courier contracts, which are basically contracts that you can either set up to move stuff from point A to point B at a price, or you can actually pick up those contracts and do the moving yourself. So this is how you can try to become a transport specialist in EVE Online. For instance, you've got the buy and sell contracts, which you can sell anything on those contracts. And I do know that one of the big advantages of the contract system is, for instance, that you can sell rigged ships through a contract system, meaning that you don't have to destroy the rigs that you put on a ship in order to sell it. It gives you more value, it saves more value, and thus that can be a pretty big advantage. The biggest disadvantage, if we now go for my contracts, let's see, outstanding, we'll do that. Time left 27 days, so you can go for 4 weeks now for a contract, but on a market order you can put something up for 3 months. And then the big question, I think, is of course, should you try to sell more than just BPCs, which you can't sell on a market through the contract system? I think you very likely should, because there is a different tax system on that, and I think the best way for me to show that is through my transactions. Now you can see that I had to put up these contracts, I had to put up a contract deposit of 100,000 ISK for everyone, and then there's a broker's fee 41,000. Oh, that's actually going to mean that it actually breaks even pretty badly, because you do put up the broker's fee, which is what you pay to either the NPCs or the owner of the structure, which is basically also what I'm getting for people that put up sell orders in my market in Dital, for instance. And then when we go to some transactions where something actually happened, let's see if I can find a contract sale here, for instance. Contract price 4,750,000, and then you still have the contract sale as well, but you get that deposit back. That is pretty important to note. And let's see if I can find an actual sell of a good. So this is another contract. Then we have the contract sale, which apparently is 0.5%, because I sold for 12.5 million, and then the contract sale tax is only 62,500, which is half the deposit. And no, that's, yeah, the deposit, which is 1% with a minimum of 100,000 ISK. Okay, that's how that works. Figured it out. So you can see here the sales from last week, basically. And then let's take a quick look and see if I can basically find a market transaction rather than a contract. Yeah, do lots of selling through contracts apparently. Yep, still in the contracts. I meant to be going for all types. Here is a simple market transaction, and here you have the transaction tax. And when I put this up, I also paid the broker's fee, but you can see here my transaction tax is 1% of this market transaction. And then when we go for the contract, you can see it's only 0.5% on the contract sales tax. So the broker's fee, I think, is always the same, but it looks like the contract sales tax is half the transaction tax, at least here in Jita 4.4, when it comes to actually selling. That is pretty interesting. I also know that there is one skill in trade that is called accounting, proficiency at squaring away the odds and ends of business transactions, keeping the checkbooks light, tight. Each level of skill reduces sales tax by 10%. And so I'm seeing a market transaction tax and sales tax on these. So I bet that they'll be different. Can I go back to that page where we saw both a market transaction here, and then we actually have a transaction tax, and then here you have the contract price and the contract sales tax, which is half the transaction tax itself. Maybe there is a way perhaps to reduce your transaction tax by getting more reputation with Caldari Navy. Is that how it works? I've said I'm not a massive expert, but definitely look into that. It looks to me like I'm paying lower taxes on my contract sales than I'm doing on my market sales at the moment. And so yeah, that's something that you always have an option for. For instance, let's say that I would want to sell some Plex. Price is really good. I'm just gonna take 200 of these, and then we're gonna do a sale in both ways of 100 of each. So you do look at the market details. Let's see what these are selling for in Jita at the moment. We can try 3.7 million. I think that has a chance to sell eventually. So here I'm going to put up that 3.7 million. Ask price 3.7 million, 2.1% above average. That ought to be okay. And the big advantage of selling straight to the market, of course, we've got 3 months of time. So this sell order remains up there for 3 months, but you have a broker's fee of 2.57%, costing me 9.5 million ISK, and then you've got the sales tax, which is 1% at this point, costing me 3,700,000 ISK if it does sell. And so asking 370 million, net result 356,786,783.13 ISK. Yeah, it is complex. This is EVE Online. This is the market. It's the most complex market in gaming that exists. It's very, very precise, but that is selling 100 Plex on the market. And as I said, the biggest advantage, of course, is the visibility, and then the fact that I can put this one up for 3 months. So let's do that. Put up that sell order, and then it becomes visible right here. And in just that time, that one sell order was already picked up, so there's a good chance that that'll succeed. And then here we can also create a contract for 100 Plex. So we're going to try and sell these for 37, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, and I want 2 because you do have to go for the full price. Oh, there is also something that I wanted to show you guys before that. If you're hesitant about putting goods on a market, you can always use this estimated price button, which will now estimate the price of 100 Plex at 333 million ISK. It does give you a warning that, you know, it's not always very accurate, but in this case it is pretty accurate. Still, we know that prices are going up, so we are going to try and sell that for 370 million ISK right here. Then we'll press next, and oops, maybe not. Where is, there we go. And so here you are limited to 4 weeks. Of course, your visibility is much lower. People would have to search in the contracts for Plex specifically. I'm not sure if a lot of people do that. We'll do that. Then we'll press finish. Yes. And close. So that order is up as well, and now you find that one in the contracts window. And then here we've got 100 Plex that are for sale for 28 days at the moment. And so that is the big difference here, of course, between contracts and between selling straight to the market. And then, as I've said, I do think that I've got a 1% sales tax on the market, and it looks like I only have a 0.5% tax when I sell a contract, because here again 4,750,000 ISK, contract sales tax 23,750. But if I reload all of this, contract deposit 3.7 million, I get that back if I get a sale. Contract broker's fee 2,702,000, and here broker's fee from the market is 9,513,000 ISK as well. So look at that. Contracts broker fee way lower than the broker's fee from Jita. Very interesting. Yeah, the contracts in EVE Online, it's full of potential, but as I've said, we can all now also see, is that some of my Plex that I've sold? Exactly. Of course, 4 of my Plex have already sold, and that will not happen that quickly with my contracts for Plex, which of course they have to buy the whole 100. Again, another advantage that is being shown here from doing sales through the market window. That is, of course, they can choose to sell like half your plex or just 4 plex, just like what we saw right here. And for this contract, it's very specific. You buy 100 plex for 370 million ISK, and that is your only option. But it does potentially cost less to do these transactions, and so I do think, especially within a corporation, within alliances and things like that, that contracts are very popular, not just for BPCs but for all goods. And I think I just showed you guys that you can use it for all of that as well. So there we go. I think that covers the contract system in EVE Online a little bit. I hope that this can be helpful for newer players, and again, I would definitely ask you guys that if you use the contract system a lot for other stuff as well than what I'm using it for right here, please put that in the comments. I think it can be very helpful for newer players in the game. And that's going to be it for this one, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time.